packaging is the same, the standards are the same, and that has really helped us sell our product. I'm sorry, I'm looking at all the various questions, and I hope we get more questions coming in on the chat. But I had some questions come in earlier, and I will try to answer those. I was asked about challenges about when I first started the business, and I'll tell you, my first product was instant noodle brand, and in Southern Africa, instant noodles was very, very, very new, and therefore we made some assumptions actually when we first started. We thought this would be a really great a great product, very easy to sell, but unfortunately, it was much harder because people didn't know about the product. So for us, our biggest challenge was trying to get people to know what the product was, how to prepare it, and to take it home because although the price point was very affordable, people didn't know what it was. And therefore, if people don't know what the product is, they're less inclined to buy it. And that for us was very difficult. Mm, registering a business. I think we had a question earlier about how long it takes to register a business. And I think it depends from country to country. We've seen with many African countries that, and on the World Bank doing business, we've seen that many countries are now able to, you can incorporate a business in less than a day or 24 hours, but not definitely not longer than a week. But I think we have, as entrepreneurs and people in business, we have to look more than just registering a business. It is, yes, it's very easy to do it online, but we have to think of what happens after you have the business. Do we understand that we have to do annual returns on an annual basis to companies registry after that? Do we understand that we have to register for taxes? Do we understand that we have to, file for social security in some countries, which is mandatory? And these are things you would have to investigate. It's not just about incorporating the business. How do we stay ahead? I think the trick is, and everyone is talking about innovation, and it's true. You really have to stand out. I think depending on the type of business you're in or what you're trying to sell, I think you really have to do your research and understand what the market wants, what the market is willing to pay for, how it wants it. Does it want it distributed to their door? Do they want it sent to a central place, etc.? But that is the homework you're going to have to do and understand how you're going to get paid. Because if someone wants your product but is going to pay you in 90 days, then you're going to be stuck without cash for 90 days. And how do you then manage that cash flow issue? Could you then take the invoice to a bank to try to get cash upfront for the invoice? That's something you have to investigate. But I think what's really important is understanding, if you have that one customer, understanding how you get paid, when you get paid, and how, for instance, your supplier wants to get paid. If you're getting if you're getting inputs from other third parties, how are you going to pay them if you're getting paid on a 90-day basis, for example? I have a great question coming out of Kenya about a 90-day settlement. And I just talked about that. And it's not different. It is an issue definitely for SMEs who are trying to sell many of their products into the formal sector. Now they have access to market, which is great. But now we're seeing that actually you don't get cash right away. So what do you do? One thing I think you do is first have a discussion with your customer or with your supermarket to ask if you can get paid sooner, particularly if you're supplying regularly, if you're supplying volume, if you're supplying perishables. I think there is a discussion you can have with your customer to say, well, this is a perishable, so therefore can we have a 14-day period? Can we have a 21-day period and see if that works? If it doesn't work, I think we're seeing a lot of the banks being able now to discount invoices. So you take your invoice in and say to the bank, would you pay me earlier or sooner? Such that so that you can then manage your business, and when you get paid by your customer, it goes straight back to the bank to finance that facility. So it is, unfortunately, there is a cost to that kind of financing, but it's one thing. Remember, when you're a startup or an SME, it's about staying alive. So you actually want to make sure you've got cash at all times to pay your bills, to pay your overheads, and to buy more stock if you need it. So therefore, cash is king in this case. Okay. Yes, interesting question around putting skin in the game. How much money do you need to have? Pre-cash flow years, etc. And as you start off, and actually there probably isn't a golden figure to it. I think it depends on how quickly you're able to generate revenue, how quickly you're able to break even. But the truth of the matter is you are going to need some capital reserve from somewhere, because it will be a tough first or second year as you stabilize the business, as you begin to understand payment issues, as you begin to understand expenses, because you will have expenses, you will have some unknown, unforeseen things happen, like the depreciation of your currency. And if you're an importer of certain things, if your currency depreciates, what are you going to do? So in that instance, you really do need to have some reserve from somewhere. If it's going to be your piggy bank or your partner's piggy bank or the bank, you have to make that. But you really do have to understand that it's a marathon and not a sprint, and you're definitely not going to make money right away unless you're doing something illegal, which we don't encourage, of course. So I think definitely capital reserve depends on the business that you're in. I'm in the food sector and being asked about regulatory requirements. And it's in the food sector, it's like the pharmaceuticals, very highly regulated depending on which country you're operating in. But we're currently operating in Zambia and it's fairly well regulated, particularly for some sort of staple foods. And therefore, in order for you to compete, you really do have to understand the regulatory framework, understand also what the competition is doing, because I think competition also is working hand in hand with the regulator creating regulations. You too should be a part of that and of understanding what kind of regulations apply to you. It is also helpful to note that there are several, I don't want to call them NGOs, but several institutions which help in terms of capacity building around regulations, particularly in food sector. And you can do some research if you're interested and you're in agro-processing or in the food sector around trying to certify your factory or trying to get international best practice in producing. There is capacity out there. There's technical assistance from people such as DFID or USAID, depending on which country you're in. You can actually access it because it's something, obviously, everyone benefits if everyone is from the same page in terms of regulation. Market research. When I first started my business, I spent about 6 months trying to do market research. And I think for Africa, and I'm speaking not just for Zambia alone, but for Africa, the biggest thing is you don't have reliable data because it's just not there. No one has bothered to ask the question, or if it is out there, it's fairly expensive and it's probably owned by an international market research company. So what I would say, particularly for startups, I think you've got to learn by doing. You may not have all the answers. You might not know the size of the market. You might not know, how much your competition is selling. But if you get into the business, I think do your initial groundwork as much as you can, but get in there and then start gathering up your own data. Try to understand from your inland revenue or your tax department how much of a product, how much of an import is coming in, understand pricing from your customer. I mean, ask your customer, how much does he sell on an annual basis of a certain product, or what is he seeing more of? And I think try to build up your own market research. But I would advise against sort of spending a lot of money before you start on digging up lots and lots of information. I do say do some homework, but don't spend thousands and thousands of dollars on market research because it actually you might not get the result that you want, and instead you have wasted quite a lot of money and time on something which might not help in the long run. Okay, I hope everyone can hear me. I haven't got any feedback yet on whether or not people can hear me. I think there's a really good question around, and it's a big issue across the continent around why foreign investors get tax exemptions and the rest of local investors do not. And I think the issue is, and we're hoping to see the change, and I think with the big drive for entrepreneurship on the continent, we may see the change from country to country. The fact of the matter is that you cannot build a country based on foreign investors alone. We have seen this before. We've seen the reality is that when things get very difficult in a market, we see the foreign investors cut staff and they leave, which creates great opportunities for local business. So things are not great at the moment for many African countries, but this is the time when we as local businesses need to actually stay the path, understand what's going on in the market and see where people are exiting, see if we can fill those gaps. We're here, we are the local knowledge, we understand the market better. So why don't we play a greater role in the economy? And I think we're seeing a lot of African governments see the benefit of it and start extending the exemptions and the benefits to local businesses as well. So we are definitely seeing in Zambia that there isn't a distinction. I think that the only thing which will distinguish you is how much money you bring in. So if you can prove to the authorities that your business is going to be X, Y, Z, this is the investment, you too will then qualify. So I think we're seeing less of a distinction between local and foreign investors. But what I would say is that we have a really strong role to play, that the many more local businesses stand up and begin to play a part, the better for our own countries. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm reading the questions and trying to answer them. Okay. Great question about our new product, new meat product. I guess this is coming out of Kenya and wanting to introduce it to the market. And I think my first question would be is to understand really, first of all, is health becoming a big issue where you are? Because he's talking about this particular type of meat product being a healthier option. Are people more inclined to buy a nutritious meal, a nutritious meat, as opposed and which is a little bit more expensive? I mean, I'm assuming it would be a little bit more expensive than a normal like a burger. I think you really have to understand what the market wants and what it's willing to pay for. Because ultimately we could have great innovations, but if no one is willing to pay for it, it's not really a great idea. So I think that's what I would say to you. I think it takes a lot to change consumer patterns, although I will stress that we're seeing a lot of changes in consumer patterns. But it is slow and it's expensive. It might be cheaper to sell something which is easier, people understand and people are easier for it to pick up. And then later on introduce something more, a little more innovative. And I will tell you, speaking from my own experience, I think my issue has been that noodles was very, very new when we started, and I made an assumption that everyone would know what it was. But it took about 2 years, and it was 2 years of pain and suffering because our volumes were low, our margins were okay, and that's what helped us get through the really difficult path. But the problem was that our volumes were very low, and because of that, it hurt the business. And we asked ourselves, perhaps we should have started off with a product which was easier to sell. People understood it and they needed it. Remember, people buy what they need, and if the price is right. So now I think because Java Foods is in the market and the Easy brand is quite a strong brand, we can now piggyback off the Easy brand and create, introduce other products. And people have grown to trust it, because I think what you want is people to trust your brand or trust your product. And then as you introduce new and innovative products, people are like, well, we know them and we know that they stand for quality, they stand for affordability, they stand for nutrition, or whatever it is that you stand for. And people will then buy the product. The best way to transport equipment after purchase. I think that depends on where you are, where you live. I live in a landlocked country, so unfortunately for us, we don't have access to the sea, so we have to, go to ports and put stuff on a truck, which is actually really, really expensive. And therefore, that is why we are really relying on a lot of local products to try to build the business, because to import many things, it's quite a costly exercise for us. And therefore, we're trying to look more local for more things. Of course, this is quite difficult for a lot of the products, but we try very much to get as much in the country. Okay. Funding. We have lots of questions around funding, and I've got to say this. Sometimes you may have all the money, or it's not only about cash or not only about financing. I think and some of the greatest businesses we know on the continent have started off with very little money. but what they got is either got a captive market or they got one customer who is willing to pay their bills. So I think what we have to understand is how do you start off and how do you then grow the business in order for you to access more capital? So I think what I would say is you really find that one customer who pays, who you can convince, who allows you to create a track record, particularly with your bank. So every month he pays on time, etc. And therefore the bank is then much more confident in dealing with you going forward. And also I think start off with small facilities if you can. I think if you're speaking to your bank, I think don't go in there and say, you want project finance on the first day. But I think you can start off with saying, okay, we've been in business for 12 months. Can we talk about an overdraft? Can we look into invoice discounting? Can we look into asset finance? Things of that nature. So the bank is able to understand your ability to pay, to understand your track record, and therefore are much more willing later on as you're trying to expand to lend you money. But I think what is important is to understand the business and is to understand how you're able to generate revenue, because revenue will bring revenue. So you will not be, even if you have to get an investor into the business, they're not going to give you money if you're not going to show them how you're going to generate revenue. And also, if you're not going to show them that you've been generating revenue and you've been using that revenue wisely, either investing it in the business to expand the business, and it's not going off to pay off, your house or things like that. So it is really at the early stages about discipline. It's about focusing on the growth of the business. It's about track record, keeping records, really keeping records. I mean, and this will help you going later on if you have to deal with tax issues. Keep records, keep every payment histories. All these things are really important. And I know in the early stages, you just do things, but really get someone to help you. And it can be even a student to sit there and input, all your records. It's really important to do that. Okay, I am trying to catch up here. All right. I think in the early days, there's particularly on the continent, we've seen quite a lot of money chasing projects, and unfortunately chasing quite big projects. So for SMEs such as ourselves, it's been fairly difficult to get the right type of financing early on in the business. So I think if you're let's say less than 3 years old, I think you wouldn't perhaps get as much money from a bank. And again, I'm speaking without knowing from country to country, and I'm very careful about that. I don't work for a bank, and there are definitely some banks who are much more SME focused, and definitely I would encourage you to visit them. But I think if you're courting equity investors, I think it is the same principle will apply. I think you really do have to show your investor who's coming in the business, understand the vision of the business, the strategy of the business, and the expansion plans for the business, and more importantly, the revenue. Where is the revenue coming from? How are you spending the money that's coming in? What are the risks associated to the business, and how are you going to manage those risks? And remember also, if you're in an environment which has got, you've got a very hyper currency, which is at the moment, a lot of the African currencies are going through depreciation. You might want to shy away from getting foreign currency debt or, things like that, because it is going to be very, very hard for you to pay back. So you do want to be careful, look around, things like that. And some people say, equity is expensive. When you're starting out, if you have someone who's a partner or who comes in as a partner, who understands where the business is going, who allows you to still maintain some control, it is very much worth having a discussion of equity at early stage. But remember, try not to sell yourself too cheap. Try to, as much as possible, maintain control until the business is big enough for you to then relinquish it. Marketing strategies are really interesting, and I think it depends on who your market is. And at the moment on the continent, and speaking from my own experience, my market is very young. My market is yuppie. My market is youthful. My market is on social media. My market doesn't have a lot of money, but is willing to try something new. And therefore, with that in mind, you design marketing associated with that market. So know who your customer is and know what will attract them to spend that extra dollar on your product. So I think marketing strategies today you really need to understand your market. And also with marketing strategies, they can no longer stay stagnant. They need to move. You need to innovate as you go along. You need to keep them engaged. And who better than African businesses to know better? Because you're on the ground, you know the latest music, the latest, language that people are speaking, what students want, when they want it, who are the stars. You know that better than most, say, versus a multinational or multinational. So your marketing strategy is so much stronger. And now, actually, because of the tools which are available to us, a lot more cost effective. You don't have to spend all this money on TV ads today, but you can use social media so much more effectively to sell your product. So I think word of mouth is excellent, definitely excellent, but you really do need to think more about innovation around social media and just getting people seeing you. And also, I'll tell you a secret as well. It's no longer a secret. Having your product in front of where everyone can see it on a shelf or wherever it will be is also marketing. The fact that they can find you is really important. There's no point in spending all this money on a great marketing strategy if they can't find the product. You're helping your competitors sell. So keep that in mind. If you're going to market, make sure your products are out there, that you're able to distribute them. Otherwise, you're wasting money. Export markets. And this is one which I'm also trying to understand how to export. And it's quite an interesting one for African because we don't do linkages very well. I'm in Zambia and we don't to sell into Malawi or Zimbabwe is not as easy as we would like it to be, although really it should be. And this is the discussion about intra-Africa trade, the fact that we've not been able to effectively manage it. And this is something we need to do better, that's for sure. And it's probably more easier to sell outside the continent than it is to, the person next door. But it's something we really have to focus on, work with our governments to make it easier for us to sell on the continent. But that being said, I think my advice is as you start up, you really want to cement your product, let people know your product in your home market. It has to have a home. It has to be successful from somewhere before you start spreading yourself too thin exporting. Because there are all these nuances once you get your product outside of your country that you might not be able to control. But I think build a strong, successful brand, a strong, successful distribution network, build supply chains which you understand in your country, such that when you're able to export, you're able to withstand lots of changes, etc. Management systems. So I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I went and visited a big water company in Zambia, one of the first water companies, which has done extremely well. And one of the things he said to me he says, if you're able to invest right away, you want to invest in a management system, in an IT system, because technology is going to ultimately help your business much better. And we know this actually. Technology these days is much more efficient, is able to capture gaps, to catch things like fraud really easily, particularly for us who are in fast moving consumer goods. You want to be able to watch what your salesman is doing, mind your stock, mind your raw material. And therefore, this is why you want to actually invest in a good management system at some point. I think when you start up, you can use some cheaper systems. I think, as you know, if you may have one product, there may be only 5 of you in the office. I'm not saying go out and get Sage or whatever it would be, but I think have it on your radar screen as you grow. You must invest into management systems. You must invest in IT infrastructure in order for you to track the way the business is growing, to track your revenues, to track your cash flows, to track what people are doing, and also to see where, things are flowing out. You'll find that you're getting all this revenue in, but there's a leak somewhere. And using IT systems and technologies, I think it might be the best way for you to capture leaks. Definitely, I think what I hope, and I hope I have said it, start small. Definitely start small. Don't it is a long haul. It is, as we know on the continent, it is fraught with all sorts of issues which you can never imagine. New regulations that increases your costs, in month 4, things like that. And so I think my advice is that, ditch the fancy office and the fleet of, I don't know, the most expensive Toyotas, etc. start with what you can manage. Start with if it's going to be one fleet of one car to distribute, start with that. If it means you're going to drive it yourself, But I think start small, understand your revenue base, understand your expenses. So, until things are able to stabilize, when you have a little bit of cash flow left, then you can look into, should I hire that extra person? Should we lease a bigger warehouse? Should we buy that more expensive piece of equipment from the US as opposed to China? I think it's really understanding the business as it grows. And honestly, the business will teach you. It'll teach you some bitter lessons. You will make mistakes. It will also, it'll also teach you to grow up. How do you solve these mistakes? And I think the best advice I would give is when you're confronted with a mistake, which may be costly, how do you come back from it? Because you shouldn't, we pray you don't stop completely, but how do you solve it? We had an instance when we first started with our noodles about expiration date. And we thought, oh, the noodles will sell really quickly, so we didn't really need a long sell by date. But actual fact, because people didn't really know the product, it sat on the shelf for a little while, and then people got nervous when there were only 3 months left on the what is it, the shelf life. And therefore, so now we realize that you actually need to give a little bit more time on things like shelf life, and we've worked with our with our manufacturer to make sure that's the case, that we're able to have a longer shelf life, keep the quality in good, keep the quality up, but also it means that we're able to sell, the product does not go off on the shelf when someone's home. Okay. Yes. For food processing, as with everything, with cars, you can buy a little car, a little Toyota, or you can buy a Bentley. It's really, there's a Rolls Royce and there's a smaller car. And the same with food processing. When we started our process, we went to China, and we had a look at very simple lines, similar lines from what you would see in Europe or in the US, but much cheaper. And we went to the US and saw beautiful state-of-the-art Rolls-Royce factory lines. We couldn't afford it. I mean, it was our whole budget. We just could not afford this, Rolls Royce. But what we said to ourselves is that we needed to start. So we got a slightly smaller line from China. We understood each other with the person who sold it to us. He gave us an engineer who helped us install it. And what we said to ourselves is that we will outgrow this line, and then we will purchase something, because we would then have grown our revenues to afford a much more expensive line. But the important thing was that we needed to start, we needed to generate revenue, and we needed not to blow our budget on machines alone, because we would have had the best machine but had no money for working capital. So I think definitely start off with understanding how much capital you have, and understanding that you can't start off with the best. It would be great if you could, but the reality is on the continent is that you have a very limited budget when you start out. So if you're, for instance, in things like a printing press, maybe it's to buy a little press, and as you grow it, as you outgrow it, then you can then look around to get a better line, a more efficient line, etc. But I'll tell you, I mean, the Chinese, I'm not selling Chinese equipment, but we've had really good success with our lines. I think we've been able to get after sales support. We've been able to change when there's troubleshooting. We've been able to speak to our engineer, and so we spend less money, but we got the same service as we would have gotten anywhere else. So I think people knock China saying it's really cheap, but I think it's also understanding what kind of equipment you need, understanding what you need. Could you buy the equipment in batches? Could you make some of the equipment at home in your countries? So see what suits you. But remember, it's about growth. So you outgrow the line, you get a better machine, you get something quicker. You also need, imagine if your capacity grows. So you definitely need to get a bigger line as more people buy your product. What is a reasonable stake to sell in a business? I think that really depends on the business. I wish I could tell you there's a hard and fast rule for how much you should sell when you start. I think what I would say, and there are different principles for this, is that try not to lose control too quickly. because then you start working for other people. Remember, this is your business and your vision and your purpose. So if you're going to sell control right away, then you are working for somebody. So I think I'll say be careful around selling too soon, while things are still, but you definitely do need, if you need to get the investment in, then seek advice on the best way to handle it. But I think for us, we have seen that we're looking for partners who are going to really be partners in the business. We want people who believe in the vision and the purpose of the business as we go ahead. And I think as we go forward, we'll then be looking to see how we can best manage the issues around control. With respect to team, I think I think we haven't spoken about having a team. And if I can give you a bit of my background, I was a lawyer for many years and then decided to go into food processing. So I had when I started this business, I had no background in it. But what has grown Java Foods was the fact that we appreciated our limitations in terms of our capabilities, each of our capabilities, and therefore we hired according to strengths of certain people. So we at Java Foods, we have an excellent production team, people who have worked in production, who have made foods for many of the big food companies, who have been well trained, and we've hired them because I appreciate my limitations, maybe just the strategy and overall operations, but the reality is we need people who have the right skills to grow the business. And at the moment, what is great about the time that we live in is that at least many of these are Africans. We have hired Zambians, Zimbabweans from all over, people who are willing and very well trained, who want to work in an African business to help grow African capacity. So I think we're very fortunate. We have a really great team, and we are always looking for great people. So please do, if you are in food processing and want to live in Zambia, please let us know. So team is really important. I'll say that I think the biggest issue about growing a business from strength to strength is really having this team, getting the right team. Some of the successful aspects of starting a food processing startup, I think, is understanding your supply chain. And it is far from perfect in Africa. I think you'll see that many countries are very strong in certain grains, such as maize, which is corn, or sorghum, or cassava. But then you find out it's grown in the farthest point of the country, and it's harvested once every quarter, and you can't get it, and it costs you a fortune to get. So I think one of the key aspects of this is really understanding the raw material you're going to use. When is it harvested? What is the pricing? What are the challenges? Is it sold before it's planted? Do you need to be involved in the actual planting? As in, do you need to be speaking to farmers to make sure that the seed they're planting is good, to get to pay an extent worker to check on the farming systems? It really, really is important to understand your raw material. How is it priced? Is it a one-on-one discussion, or is it market priced, and things like that? So I think from our own experience, we've found that with things like maize and soya, very well grown, you can find it every corner. But things like millet and sorghum, which was grown many, many years ago very well, but now it's not grown very well, it means we've had to be much more involved with the farming process to make sure that they're actually able to give us what we want when we want it, and and also at the right price. So I think it's really been understanding how we can get the raw material, which is for us a very important aspect of it. I love this question from Jamila, actually, about getting the diaspora involved in capital raising. I think what is really important is that for people to appreciate the opportunities on the continent. And I think forums like the Tony Elumelu Foundation and what they're trying to do around entrepreneurship is a great platform for people around the world to see what African startups are doing, where they're going. Because I think half of it, as I said earlier, is that data is a big problem. It's not that you can put African startups into Google and have this great list. it doesn't work out like that. It's really it's much harder for people to find good projects and to see what people are doing. So I think it's really trying to use platforms, as I said, like Tony Elumelu Foundation, to get people to know the opportunities which are out there and get more Africans in diaspora more involved in funding opportunities in growing African businesses. And hopefully we'll see very soon perhaps a PE company created and funded by funds from the diaspora, from Africans in the diaspora. We look forward to that, right? Mentorship is really key. I definitely agree with you. And I have mentors for different things. As I said, I didn't come from a background of agro-processing or food. I had to really find my feet in it and see who one was in my local market who was doing well. And I tried very much to see what information I could get from them. But also I looked around in the region. I looked around at what other people were doing and tried to reach out to them. So I would say it is really important. It's really good to value networks. Networks are really important for growth of any business. Networks will tell you where to get financing, to where to get partnerships, better methods around technology. So I think it's really important if you can to put some emphasis on mentorship. Okay, I've been asked about my the fact that I worked for Mr. Dangote and how he helps input in my business. I think what he did was really acted as a mentor, just what I spoke about encouraging us to, and me for coming from Zambia, because he had obviously come back and forth into Zambia and was really curious why there weren't many more local businesses. And local, I mean, he meant by Zambian businesses. He was very surprised that actually Zambia was very dominated by either South African businesses or actually foreign multinationals. And so his question to me was, but why aren't there more Zambian businesses? And I think it encouraged me very much to see what I could do. And perhaps naively so, I sort of jumped in it with both feet. But thank goodness I did, because I think if you do something half-heartedly or you're still in two minds, it's never really going to take off. And so here we are, 3 years later, completely done a U-turn. I don't do anything legal. I'm at really trying to grow a brand, trying to grow a food product, trying to innovate, trying to create new food products as well. And I think it's been really great. It's been painful. We've learned a lot of hard lessons. We've burnt a lot of money as well, but we've learned something. And I think for me to be speaking on this platform is testimony to the fact that something has happened, something good has happened. Pushing for growth. And that's the best thing you want. You want to get over the really hard stages and pushing for growth. And I think when you're over the first hurdle, this is when you really want to start looking for the right amount of working capital to push for growth. Because it's that working capital which will leave the rest behind. But also when you're pushing for growth, you really want to say, what is going to push you to grow to the next stage? Are you introducing a new product? Are you introducing a new technology? Do you have another market? Perhaps now you've got an export market, which is bringing you more revenue. So you really want to see, when you're pushing for growth, what kind of growth is this? Where is the growth going to go, and what are the risks associated with this growth, so that you're able to raise the funds? Yeah, look, yeah, startups, you're always going to fail, and you're always going to make mistakes. And the truth of the matter is, if you're really into this, right, you will find a solution for that fall. You have to learn the lesson from it. Perhaps it was the wrong product, the pricing was wrong, the market was wrong, your distribution was wrong. But you have to solve those four things. You have to assess why you had failed. What was the issue? Was it the competition? Was it the regulation? Did you understand the tax issues? But you have to learn from it really quickly. And I mean, if you speak to, I mean, a really good example is a friend of mine in Nigeria who has done Conga.com. If you look at Simdul Shagaya, he has done over 10 businesses. And his 10th one was it's Conga.com. So he fell for it by continuing to find out what it was in business which was going to be the next big thing. And I think that's the best advice for everybody, is that you really have to fall forward. You have to learn from the mistakes. Maybe it's not the right time, maybe it's time for something else, and maybe you have to come back to it. But you have to really take it that if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you've got to innovate, learn from your mistakes, and move on. To tackle two products concurrently, I guess you can. I think it depends on your capacity. I think it depends on your market as well. Is the market able to, are you able to successfully sell these two to the same customer? Or is it finding two different customers? Is it going to complicate your distribution? So I think I would ask yourself the question about, I mean, there are many big brands like Nestle who sell multiple products to the same customers. So it's not about one or two products can you sell to, but is the same, are your products able to be sold to the same customer? Are you able to get efficiencies by selling many? I mean, that's the key. If you can sell 10 products to one customer, fantastic. But I think it's to understand whether, as you say, a white sold on product and cosmetic products can be sold to the same customer at the same time on the same payment terms, etc. I think you've got to understand that. Mm. I'm trying to see if I got all the questions. I think a really interesting one, which was on a more personal basis, was around um, how did you manage it all? And I think the best thing is, remember, you have to have balance, because this is all about staying alive, and it's not only just about the business, but it's also about you, who's the sort of key man, the person who has the vision, who understands the business as well, about managing your personal life, managing your health, and keeping your clarity around your vision. So you do have to look after yourself and try as much as possible to to create a balance. And I think it's something that we don't say enough. I think people talk all about revenue, keeping it lean, keeping the vision going. But remember, and this is really difficult, it is indeed really difficult when you start up, because there will be a lot of heavy things you have to deal with, a lot of trying to get paid, trying to find the customer, things like that. So remember that you have to you look after yourself as well. In fact, yesterday, if anyone was following me on Twitter, I put up something about why you shouldn't marry an entrepreneur, and it's because of all the drama that goes around your first few years of of managing your business. But why having a partner, of course, is really important, because it helps balance some of the issues. Oh, great. We've just got some information about someone trying to launch a fund from the African diaspora. That's really good. Okay. I don't think a unique brand is a detriment for a startup. I think it's really, again, understanding the market. Because you remember, it- let's go back to basics. When you're starting up a business, you want to make sure the market is able to buy the product, and you're able to get paid, and you're able to manage your expenses and then stay alive. So you really have to assess, will your market be able to buy organic products? Does the market want organic products? Are organic products more expensive? Are they cheaper? Things of that nature. And so I think it's really understanding what the market wants. Are you able to sustain a long period of time before people start taking this new product, this unique product? And also, do you understand that maybe you have to spend a little bit more on marketing to sell the product? If you have this a war chest of cash in order to do so, then there's nothing wrong with starting out with a unique product. But I think just bear in mind that it does take a long time, particularly on or actually anywhere, if your product is unique and requires a lot more to sell it, and a lot more sort of handling around it. Some people are very lucky and their product is an instant hit. Other people takes a little time, it takes a lot more explaining, a little bit more money. Okay. Yeah, so an interesting one about sharing of profits from products. So I'm trying to find out, would that be like a commission based? Like you would get, you have people help you sell it, and it's almost like, I guess whatever they sell, there's a commission. Would that be the kind of thing you're looking at? Of which case, as long as it works, as long as you're able to sell the product and get revenue, I think that sounds interesting, actually. It's something we have looked at in our own business about at universities, since we sell meals and it's one of the big products that students eat. We actually we're trying to create a scheme where, we get students to sell, and if they sell 100, say 100 packets, they win a prize. And it's so almost like they are commissioned agents, but, students are able to get it on campus when they want it, as opposed to waiting for us to sell it in the stores. So I don't know if it's the same thing as the question I saw earlier. Um, what is the best strategy to handle businesses and services that are interwoven? I think again that goes back to your team. I think if you're able to manage those businesses services together, then that and it works well. I think that it would depend on the team if they can actually manage that. Yeah. I love this question around strategies about competing. And I think what we have found is that one, we created a brand with we thought about something which people will be easy to remember, which had a concept of convenience. And our products are called Easy Brand, and we have a unique way of spelling it. And so we created a buzz around that, and we looked into making sure we looked at our competitors' packaging, what our competitors were saying, and definitely tried to do better than them. We also looked at things around pricing. We looked at things around distribution, and we also looked at things around marketing. So remember what I said about marketing for us, for the market. And because we were on the ground, we were closer to the people and closer to saying things that they understood. And so for us, I think we're able to compete much better in our market, better than our competitors, because we understood the market better. So I think those are some of the strategies we employed. I mean, we put a little bit more money around into marketing, into packaging, and into distribution. And also, I would say another thing. I think what we did use a lot and used it well was that Zambia at the moment, and I think also in many other countries, there's promotion of local brands. And we have a government which has really been pushing the big supermarkets to say that there's no need to import products if there's a local substitute available. And we really pushed hard on our customers to say that we are a local brand. There's no need to import X, Y, and Z because we have this. And our brand is a very strong brand. We have followed the standards, etc. And therefore, we really pushed being a Zambian brand, a local brand, very hard. And it's something I think we can all push as long as we maintain the quality. We're able to manage on the pricing as well, and we're able to deliver when people when they want the product. So I think those things have helped us really compete very well. And I think for a lot of customers today, they want to be able to say that they actually buy locally, because nobody wants to be, in trouble or be seen not to support the growth of a local private sector. So that I think we have used that very much to our advantage. On issue of seed capital, and I think I might have just discussed it a little earlier, I think it is true. I think starting off is very, very difficult. And I think your first call may not necessarily be a bank, but I think it depends on the sector you're in. I would say look around in your countries around if they are SME type lenders who have a little softer interest rates, perhaps, who are looking at certain projects. Again, it depends on the country you're from, and then later on look at the bigger banks who will be looking to see documentation or track record much more. But I think it is a problem everywhere, and there's no simple solution. I think the best thing to do is to be quite innovative. I mean, start off in your own house, start off with your friends, then go off and see maybe someone who might has an interest in the sector and see if you can partner with them, and then grow the business more, then go and see if you can get bigger money from banks. What do we base remuneration on? So this is for our team. So our team is actually, we have an operational team, which is our sales team, and then we have a production team. So we actually give production bonuses to the production team if they're able to reach production goals on a 6 monthly basis. And that means it goes into not just producing the product, but producing of a certain quality, also maximizing the raw materials so we don't have waste as well. So all that goes into remuneration over and above what they get paid on a monthly basis. On the sales side, of course, we also look at how much revenue they're bringing in. We have a credit policy, which we don't like very much, but we unfortunately have to for some of our big customers. So we look about collection, if they're able to actually rein in the money much quicker, if they're able to grow volumes, get new customers as well. And that also has an impact on their sort of commissions or bonuses as well. I think it's not necessarily the case when I said that if you don't have your own startup capital, you cannot start a business. But what it does say is if you're going to start up a business with someone else's money, it is in the long run, people might not believe that you have skin in the game, that you're using someone else's money because maybe you don't have they might not see it as you don't have your own, but they may not see it as you don't want to risk your own money to start up a business. So it's always encouraging if you're able to put some money in your own startup or to start, even if it's just to buy a first piece of equipment, but they know that you have risked something into your startup. So I think the question around if you don't have startup capital of your own, then you won't be able to develop an idea, does not follow. But in the long run, I think people who would invest in startups where a startup founder has put in not only sweat, as in put in your own effort, but also has risked some capital as well. It's seen in a very positive light when you put your own money into it. I agree. I think selling your business too early, I mean, it's great if you get a really good strategic partner to grow the business, but I think there's a time for that because remember, you also don't want to sell too early before and also too cheaply. I mean, you might have this really great idea and the business is still small, so the valuation is small, and someone puts very little money in the business and takes 51% when you could have done it a year later and that 51% would have been worth much more, and actually you could have had it come off on a better bargaining in terms of control. So I mean, and this is my opinion. I think it's really about timing, about when you're about to sell or bring a partner in. It's about timing, about how much you're willing to put on the table, how much you're willing to give up, because ultimately, the person who puts the money in, the bulk of the money, is really going to want to control the business. So you do really want to be aware of that and know when you want to take that money in. Yeah, being investor ready is a lot of work. They say when you're capital raising, it's like it's a complete job. So, and remember this because it doesn't happen overnight, particularly if you're looking for a sizable amount of money to expand the business. Being investor ready is really important because they want to see, they're used to seeing a company documentation in a certain way, records in a certain way. And it also means that it means you are going to, some of your time is going to go away from the operations, from growing the business into getting the business investor ready. So it means that you will have to get a business plan together. You are going to discuss your revenues. You are going to discuss if you have or have not paid taxes, why you haven't paid them. If you have, why is there certain documentation missing, things like that. It takes quite a lot to be investor ready, and even when you're investor ready, you still have to go through things around audits, around discussions around and negotiations around valuations, etc. So I would say that if you are ready to take on big capital, make sure you're also ready to spend a substantial amount of your time trying to get yourself and the company investor ready and knowing what the implications are of getting an investor in at that time, because it will take you away from the business. Yeah, I completely agree. We got a great question via email about, diversity comes with business startups is immense for a starter. And it's true. I mean, like as I said, I came from a background of nothing actually in business. And I quickly realized actually that you really did need a team which brought different angles or different pieces to the puzzle. Um, and I think it's really important to understand what key skills you need from the onset. Do you need a strong sales and marketing person? Do you need someone in R&D right away? Understand where you think the best place of your to put your money in. It might mean that you don't have a whole team right away, but it may mean that you might involve you. It might need you to put money into certain key roles. Okay. Yeah, there are lots of. I've been asked about this. What did I read around business startups? And I think there are quite many of them. And I mean, I've read widely around sort of entrepreneurship. It's such a pity. I can't. I will put it on the email very soon, so I can let everyone know what various books I have read. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think one of my favorite one was what is the one I read? Oh, it'll come to me later. Yeah, it's fine. Let me see. I hope I've answered most of the questions. Yeah, about sticking with a business when it's not working. And I think that's a great question. And I think it is, and that's what I talked about being agile, about being able to react quickly, because oftentimes it may be not that the business is not working, but maybe the business is taking too long to start up. You're not breaking even yet, or you've been faced with certain obstacles. So I think that the trick there is to react quickly. What is it going to take, or what is it going to be to make you react or change the direction of the business very quickly? And they say for startups, it's about being agile, about being able to change course quickly. Because if you're going to take time, then it's going to be quite difficult for you and it's also not about sticking that this is going to happen now. I think the issue would be either create a new product, change the direction, change the marketing strategy, things like that. But you really do have to be able to move on quite quickly, or else you lose your shirt quickly. Okay. I think we've gone through quite a lot. I'm just going through to see if we've answered all the questions. Am I missing any, Felicia? Have I? I've got a question about sending a business plan. Um, I gotta say, I would try. I think I'm a bit time constrained and probably, I mean, I understand my business better, but I think you probably want to send your business plan to someone who's more of a financial advisor, someone who would be able to give you some feedback. Is there a right time to leave your job? Is there ever a right time? I think I think you should think about it in the context of if you've worked on your business plan while you're still working for someone else. I think to understand one, are you capital ready? Do you have enough reserves to sustain yourself and your business idea for the next few months? while you start the business, while you get everything on an even keel, and then whilst you understand the business. So I think it's understanding when you can take the leap. And sometimes maybe taking the leap is when you have a customer. I mean, that would be great if you could take a leap when your customer is ready. But I think you would know better when you're able to take the leap. And I think the key feedback I got was take the leap when you know you have enough capital reserves to sustain your idea and to sustain yourself. Otherwise, it is very difficult when you get out there and then you realize actually you don't have enough money to roll out this great startup idea that you have. When is the best time to hire staff? I tell you, you don't want to be. It's startup is strapping it up when you start, and you always want to keep a lean machine. But the truth of the matter, you cannot do everything, and you cannot be everywhere. And I think as the business grows, you know when to hire, and you know who to hire. Is it an accounting person you need to hire? Or could you outsource that? I mean, I think you know when you feel that you're straining yourself and you're becoming less efficient and you're having difficulties delivering upon promises or contracts. So I would say as your business grows, beware of when you're not able to deliver. And don't be afraid to hire. It does increase your costs, but it increases your efficiencies. But hire in key positions. Don't hire people for the sake of hiring. So maybe you do not need the receptionist because you can answer your own phone calls, but perhaps you need a driver for deliveries so that you're able to go and see clients for marketing. So you do need to balance it out, but don't be afraid to hire people and grow the business. Yeah, hiring slowly and firing fast. I love that. And sometimes it is difficult because for startups, you first of all, you don't have very many people, and you've invested some time and effort into people in the business. But if they don't fit, it is the best thing you can do for yourself is to get rid of them. And sometimes it is good riddance to people who are ineffective because good people should lessen your burden and not add on more. If you're doing more work yet you have more staff, then there's a problem. So definitely do look into hiring slowly. Think about who you need, why you need them, and what expertise they're going to bring. And also definitely make sure you understand what they're there for and discuss it with them because so everyone is clear what their roles are. I mean, it's terrible. You spend a lot of money hiring somebody and you spend a lot of money keeping them, and they're not even sure what their job is. So be sure you're able to utilize people's resources effectively. And if they don't fit in, if they're not assisting grow the business, do understand how you can get rid of them. And when I say do understand, because in some countries it's really fairly difficult to get rid of people. So understand the procedures and how you can terminate employment as well. Okay. I don't really for ICT, I don't think I really have an understanding of commission-based marketing models for ICT. It might be, I mean, I'm in the food business, so it might be a little different. And you're probably best to ask somebody around who's in the ICT business around commission-based marketing. Okay. Do we have any other questions or? Strategy is really important. I think it's probably the most important. And strategy is about keeping abreast of what's happening. It's about making informed decision on the market, on pricing, on innovation, on research and technologies. And it's important because I think it should always evolve. It's even understanding your competition. And once you start a business, you really do need to understand the long-term strategy. So where do you see your business growing? Is it going to be a food and beverage company? What kind of beverage is it? What is your advantage, etc.? But I think what it takes is that you really need to understand the market, and I think understand where you want to go. What is your vision for your business? But also, I think you have to exercise flexibility because things can change altogether. For instance, look at milk. I'll give it a very simple example of milk. We've seen the pricing of milk go down. This is imported sort of milk powders, etc. And therefore, if you were in milk and you want to create products out of milk, um, is this a good time? Perhaps it is, as opposed to another raw material. But I think it's understanding where you want to go, the end game is, but also allowing the flexibilities for changes such as I said, pricing for certain raw material. Being educated elsewhere, how did that impact on my entrepreneurial journey? I don't think it's education, actually. I've got to tell you, I mean, all the education that could not prepare me for having worked in Zambia. I got to tell you that for a fact. Having gone to school somewhere else and coming to sell to the lady on the street, understanding her pricing mechanism, it didn't help. What helped was the fact that I was open to the market, open to what was understanding what was in front of me and understanding about being agile. I think what it is what being educated abroad and having worked abroad outside of Zambia, what it helped was understand good hard work and about a good work ethic, understanding belief in oneself and the vision. And I think that's what has helped me definitely. And also the network. I think, as I said, I'm mentored by several people. They're not just in Zambia, but around the world. And I think that's what has definitely helped me in my business. But I would say that one should not feel disadvantaged, the fact that they may not have been educated abroad or outside of their country. But I think what you should think of is your work ethic, the fact that you believe in your passion or your dream or your idea, the fact that you're willing to put in the work to grow it and the discipline to grow it. So I think that's my advice. So it should not be a plus or a minus. And I think we've seen several businesses on the continent which have grown. Some people haven't even been to school. So it's not about education. It's really about being smart. It's about having guts. It's about some luck, of course. And just doing it, the work, just working at it. Yeah, we have a lot of experiences where there's lots of we a few not maybe not a lot. I've had a few experiences where employees have other family commitments, and it is sometimes interferes with the growth of our the business. But I mean, I'm a woman, and also I have a lot of other family obligations and commitment myself, and therefore I am perhaps I'm more aware of it. But what we do try to do is be very open and transparent about our policies around certain things. And we tell people that, well, these are the leave days you have. And please do call in before 10 if there's a family problem. But please do know that you have to make up the time or you have to leave clear instructions with X, Y, and Z if you're not coming in the office. So I think if you're able to speak with your staff, if you're able to systems, if you are able to understand where your staff are coming from, then people are much more willing to work with you and much more willing to manage their family obligations in the space of transparency. What you don't want is people not showing up for 3 days because they have a family problem and they can't come back and tell you. You actually want them to share that with you. And so I think, as I say, being a woman, I think that we're probably better able to understand some of these things actually. Um, My greatest motivator, I'll tell you, I hadn't lived in Zambia for a very long time, and I think what has happened, and really we got here because of the support of Zambians. Um, Java Foods and our brands would not have grown without the support of all our customers. And they supported us because they wanted a Zambian brand to do well. And so it motivates me and actually keeps me going because I know that we have customers and people who believe in us and believe in our products and believe in what we're doing. And really, I mean, it's coming from, as I say, from a background of law and doing this. I mean, we have created a buzz, we've created a sense of ownership. I mean, people feel the Zambians believe that they own the Easy brand. It is their brand. And I can tell you, if we're able to grow and outside of the country, they will probably be the proudest bunch of people if they sold the brand outside. So what keeps me going or what motivates me is the fact that we have people who believe in what we're trying to do, believe that we want to give affordable nutrition and actually create jobs at home. So that has what's really kept me going. Advertising for startups, I think, as I said earlier, I think the best thing is that we are living in a time where we can use so many tools which are much cheaper than what 10 years ago. I mean, social media, even what we're doing right now, I mean, we're able to use these tools for very little money and get our products known out. And so I think we need to be innovative about how we sell the product, the tools we have available. But we definitely need to know marketing is a very key product of selling or getting people to know the brand. So it is something you definitely have to budget for, but definitely think about cheaper, more efficient ways of getting your message out there. Yeah, I think investors are looking for founders or companies who are managed, have a good management team. I don't think investors will look negatively on a startup founder who does it part-time, as long as there's a strong management team in place. So the key would be, if you are working somewhere else and you founded the business, make sure one, you have a good team. Whoever's running the operations either reports to you on a weekly basis, a quarterly basis, and you're fully aware of where the business is going. And also understand, maybe make the investors understand that maybe you're coming to join the business later, or maybe you too are actually just a financial investor, because there are people who are investors, but only financial investors. So I think it's making investors understand what your role in the business is, if you are really a financial investor or you are actually a founder, operational investor. With respect to how do I manage when I have low times in the business, we have a team, and what happens is that we tend to, I think, when we tend to gather or have discussions when things are difficult, and therefore when things are difficult, we just tend to see what is the problem. We dissect the problem and see how best we can move forward. So I think we take strength from each other. So that's the best way we do it. Um, I'm see. These strategies for an agricultural business. I think I did discuss it before. I think it depends on what the agricultural business is, and agricultural business is fairly broad. Are you farming? Are you processing? Are you the person who's selling the products to a processor? Are you the end retailer? So I think it really depends on where you fit in terms of the strategy for an agricultural business. I think if you're on the farming side, I think it's to understand, obviously, your seed, your yields, and things like that. Unfortunately, I'm not a farmer, so I can't probably tell you what sort of strategy on the farming side. But what we have seen on the side of where we're keen because we're at the end of it. But our input is really to make sure we're able to get the raw material when we want it, how we want it, at the right price. And so we have a lot of discussions with integrators around making sure that working with farmers around getting the products we want when we want them and for the right price. I'm sure there is a possibility of linking the TEP members together. I think that's probably a question for TEP. I think they're best to answer any questions around linkages with the TEP network. But I think it's a very good idea. It's a really powerful platform, as I said. And definitely, if we're going to do intra-Africa trade, I think the network is a really great network. The question, why Java Foods? I think you answered the question. Of course, our first product was instant noodles, and Indonesia is the biggest manufacturer of instant noodles in the world. And therefore, we chose an island. There's actually no science in why it was called Java Foods. It's as simple as that. That's where we got the name from. But also bear in mind that the name Java Foods doesn't mean anything. We concentrate on the product or the brand name. And remember, we own the Easy brand of foods. So we have Easy Noodles, we have Easy Super Cereal, and therefore we don't mind. You could call us Orange Company. But as I said, our real focus is creating a brand, and the brand is around the Easy food brands. So that is what we actually market more of. Yes, we've had several instances where we have been cash strapped, and I'll say cash strapped in the sense that we have money is owed to us, but at the moment we're unable, we have cash flow issues because cash is trapped in invoices. So as I said, one of the things we did is go and speak to our customer about getting paid earlier, which meant that we had to discount with our customers. So to get paid earlier, we were paid 2% less or whatever it would be on that invoice because we needed to get paid earlier. We also spoke with our bank. We took in our invoice and they said to our bank, would they pay us on the basis of the invoice? And when we got paid, we'll pay the money across to them. And then last resort is I had to dig in my own pocket to make good some of the payments. And that's what you do. It's your business. You have skin in the game. You make good when the company is going through a hard time. And that's because we really believe in the business, and we've had to do that once or twice when things were very difficult. I think this year has been a difficult year because we went through depreciation, which we never thought in a quick period of time, and therefore we had to do some quick measures, and the quickest measure at the time was for me to actually put more funds into the business. It's not always ideal, but you've got to do what you've got to do to keep the business running. But in the long run, as I said, I think investors take that as positive because they say that they know that Monica is Java Foods and she'll do anything or what it takes to keep the business going. So that's what happens sometimes. You've got to act quickly to keep the business going. I definitely regret about if I would actually have started this business earlier had I known. I think I would have loved to have been younger and have sort of less commitments because I think it takes at this stage to fail is a lot more painful than if I had failed at 20 or 25 or 30, for instance. But I think it is a lot harder when you're older. You have more commitments, and I think everyone don't take too long. Is my best advice. I think there's never a perfect scenario for you to start a business, but I think if you're going to take the leap, the sooner, the earlier, the better, because if things happen in life, and you have lots of things happen, and you want to be able to sort of protect yourself as you or to better manage it, and or to be better able get up from failure, because you will have failures. Things will not work out the way you want them to, but you should be able to be much more agile and dust yourself off and keep on going. Yeah, how we manage the volatile kwacha. We are still learning how to manage a volatile kwacha, and we've had to speak to our bankers about hedging. We've had to speak to even some of our suppliers about discounting it. And it's not only Zambia, it's a lot of other countries as well. So because we pay some of our products in US dollar, we're able to say to them, but we're paying you in dollar, therefore give us a little bit of a discount. We've also done things like bulk buying, fixing the price and bulk buying so that we we are able to withstand the shocks for 4 to 5 months. So I think we're still learning. I mean, we're a small business and we're still learning how to manage a depreciating currency. So I think it's important that everybody knows that's the economic environment we're in, and actually understand how best you can manage it. It's going to be important for you going forward if you are importing anything. But if you're exporting, I mean, great. If you're exporting, you actually have US dollar currency coming in. But also, I think it's an important point if you're going to borrow in US dollars and your income is in local currency, you might want to be aware of how to manage that risk because it is quite dangerous. It could be the death of your business. I like this question about the transition from a family business to a public business company for stability. And the truth of the matter, if you look all around the world, many of the successful businesses are family businesses. So I think there should be no negative connotation against running a family business. I think it's actually quite positive. I think if it's run with good corporate governance, good financial discipline, and has a great brand, I think there's nothing wrong with a family business. I think when you transition to become a public company, the question is why you're transitioning. Why are you trying to access cheaper capital, more capital? I mean, those are questions you need to ask yourself at the right time, so that you're able to understand where you're going in terms of why you need to do it. Becoming a public company has different connotations and different issues. So you need to be prepared for it. I think we are quite a way away from doing that. I'm sorry, I just have to get this. Sorry, I need to call you back. I'm on a call. I'm sorry about that, everybody. Yeah. 3 sentences for a first-time entrepreneur. I would say build something you believe in, because building a brand, building it and have the passion for it is really important. But passion is good, but you still need skills to pay the bills. So make sure you have a really good team which will help you pay the bills. Definitely build up reserves and energy for the business, because you're going to need it. You're going to need definitely the reserves, and you're going to need the energy to build the business, because there will be days when you will not know what happens and how you got there. Lean machine. Manage your expenses. Don't spend all your money all at once on the first day. It's a long haul, it's a marathon, and therefore try to cut down on expenses as much as possible in the beginning. Try to get and bring in the revenues before you start spending it. Don't spend before you're able to generate revenue. I hope I understand we've got 3 minutes left. I hope that's great. I hope that's answered many of the questions. We have quite a number coming in right now. I'll take the last question about the services of a business promoter. I guess that's someone who's trying to help you raise money. I think it depends on when, at the stage of growth of your business, are you ready to take the business to the next level? Are you, is it at a certain size? And then it makes sense to get an advisor or a consultant to help you, because one, they understand how to get the company investor ready, understand what investors look for, understand what you need to do to actually get the best for your best interest. So I think it really depends on the size of the company and where you are, and also if you're willing to pay for it, because I think also getting advisors in costs money. So you need to be ready to pay for it at the right time. I do hope this was helpful. I mean, we're all learning together, I might add. Given that we're also in the stage, we're doing a transition, but it's been really great talking about my experiences and sharing them with you. If you want to continue the conversation, you can follow me on Twitter at Monica Musonda, and please keep in touch. I think it was a really great session. Yeah.